Hey everyone, welcome to the Orange and Black Insider. I am Anthony Cosenza. It's great to have you with us once again. We are live on our YouTube channel as well as on Cincy Jungle as we are every episode. We are so grateful that you are joining us, and this is the podcast for Bengals fans. And we love doing this show, and we love interacting with the live listeners. We're going to try and get to some fan questions at the end of this show if time permits. So please leave those in the comment thread at Cincy Jungle, on Twitter at BengalsOBI, or in our live YouTube chat. We appreciate the feedback there. A lot of things going on with the Bengals. We're going to talk about some of those and have a little fun while we're at it too tonight. I'm joined by Connor. Connor Howe. He had a couple of weeks off doing other projects, and we're happy to have him back. Connor, how are you?
I'm good. Finally ready to talk some more Bengals football.
Yeah, I think the last time you were with us, we were talking about it before we kicked off the show, was that live draft show where we kind of did that for the first time, and that was obviously a pretty interesting evening, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, and a lot of wackiness ensued that night, not just with what the Bengals did on that first night, obviously. Also joined by Scott Schulze. Scott, thanks for being with us and getting through some of the technical stuff you've been dealing with lately, but we're happy to have you as always, buddy.
Yeah, I'm surprised, as an engineer, I tend to have the most technical difficulties. Yeah, so we'll see how it works.
It's
It
all
must
good.
be the nice weather or something. It's finally warm in Ohio.
Yeah, it's frying the wires or something, right? So, yeah. Anyway, glad to have both you guys with us. Let's kind of just dive right into some of the topics we have at hand. And even though the NFL draft is now a couple weeks in the rear view mirror now, and obviously it was a pretty exciting weekend for the Bengals, there was kind of an interesting question that Scott came up with for this week, and it's partially due because there is another draft from a major professional sport upon us in the NBA, and they do their draft a bit differently than the NFL does. The NFL kind of does obviously a tiered system. The worst teams pick at atop each round, and then it kind of snakes around through the back of each round based on the best performers in a given year for the prior year, and a lot of times that's what helps get poor NFL teams a quick rebound by getting these high picks, maybe get a quarterback, that sort of thing. Scott, I'll kind of start with you here. Obviously, the NBA does it a little differently, and there's a lottery system where there's kind of a tank for a best player type of situation, even though a team might be mediocre or okay. Do you think that since you kind of posed this question, do you think that the NFL should turn more into a NBA-like type of draft system instead of the format that they've traditionally had?
I'll say personally, I'm not a fan of the draft lottery, and I think part of the reason is it's a little different between the two sports, because if you look at football, unless it's an Andrew Luck kind of quarterback or a Cam Newton, your one player isn't really going to make or break you. I mean, you get a first round safety or a left guard or something who's really good. That's not really going to transform your team from a 2-win team to a playoff team. Whereas I think in the NBA, I kind of understand it because you only have 5 guys on the field at a time. So you have more of that going on where, if you look at the Cavaliers, they're the worst team in the league. They get LeBron James, and all of a sudden they are suddenly, competing for the title every year. So I think it makes more sense that, if you're a bad team, you're tanking. And so you're trying to prevent the tanking a little more. So from that regard, I totally understand it, why that league would do it. But it's something that I think for the NFL wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, only because I don't think tanking gets you a whole lot. And especially because you don't really know who's going to be in the draft. Because you ask most of these coaches and general managers in November, December, who is the top guy going to be? They generally don't know. I mean, if you look at this past year, okay, people knew that defensive end was pretty good, but they weren't really sure on the quarterbacks. The year before, no one really knew Goff or Wentz was going to be a number one pick until later in the process after the combine. So you don't really know what you're getting. Whereas in basketball, you kind of have a better feel of what you're getting because you kind of know you've kind of been following them more. And people generally know, hey, this LeBron James or this whoever, is the Shaquille O'Neal is going to be the next best. And that's the other thing, too, is the thing with Shaquille O'Neal. When he went in the draft, I think it was the Orlando Magic had, I think they've just missed the playoffs. They're like 41-41 or something like that. They, basically a really good team. And just the way luck went, they got the top pick. And so they get Shaquille O'Neal, it changes their franchise. They go from a good team to a great team until he left for bigger money. So it seemed kind of unfair because if you're a really bad team, all of a sudden you see this team that jumps right past you and like, hey, wait a second. Like if I was the Browns and I was perpetually horrible and I saw a team that, was a decent team jump ahead of me and take the top pick in a league where it matters that much, I think I'd be frustrated. So I guess for those reasons, I really wouldn't want to see the NFL adopt it. But I thought I'd see what you guys think.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. For me, and I'll be kind of brief with it because personally I don't watch a ton of basketball and I definitely don't watch the NBA draft. I kind of follow who some of the top picks are and who some teams get. But for me, I think it's also, it doesn't work for the NFL because of the amount of players that are on an NFL roster as compared to what's on an NBA roster, and obviously getting a star player or a handful of star players, a couple of star players is key for a basketball team, whereas football is a bit more of a team sport. You got to balance out your roster quite a bit more with 53 guys on your team instead of 11 on a final NBA roster. So that's why I see it doesn't work. I also don't like the mantra of tanking to get a star. I just think that sucks for fan bases, and it doesn't always work. And as bad teams get up there, it's a roll of the dice if they actually get that top pick or what have you. So for me, I don't really like the NBA draft system, and I really hope the NFL doesn't adopt that system. Personally speaking, I don't know, Connor, any thoughts from you differentiating the NFL draft and the NBA draft, and what the NBA does better or worse than the NFL?
I think it's hard because the NBA right now, I think a lot of people view it as kind of a joke. I mean, I do, especially. I grew up playing basketball. That was kind of my thing. I was planning on playing college basketball until just stuff happened. And as an avid basketball fan, once upon a time, you kind of look at today's NBA and it's easy to say, oh, well, the style has changed, it's boring. But you look at the composition of teams and it's just hard because they have a salary cap, but they also have a max contract, or whatever. Like they limit how much you can sign a single player to, which makes the whole salary cap kind of almost meaningless because stars will take like max salaries. And I mean, if like a team, if the Warriors, for example, had to pay, like, if Kevin Durant could sign with a team for 75 mil as opposed to 50 mil or whatever, there's not going to be these super teams like the Warriors, the Cavaliers, whoever else is a super team at the time. So I think that it's kind of hard because you look at the lottery and how much does the NBA draft lottery play a part in the development of these super teams? Because, I mean, how many, the Warriors and the Cavaliers, for example, the two best teams in the NBA right now, it seems like, neither one of those teams, I think LeBron might have been a first overall pick, but aside from him, there isn't a single first overall pick. Probably not a lot of even top 5 picks on the two best teams in the NBA. It's a lot more of just free agency signings and trades and stuff like that. So I personally don't think that the lottery has that big of an impact on the level playing field, so to speak, in the NBA. So I'm kind of all in on it for football because, I mean, the Browns have had how many top 5 picks in the past 10 years, and what has that done for them? It's kind of, the draft is a crapshoot, and we all during draft season try to make it out as though it's some sort of science or thing that you can just kind of predict. But it's not like there haven't been busts before in the top 5 picks. And so how much more value? And that's the thing is like even if you make it a lottery, it's only, at least in the NBA, it's only among the teams that didn't make the playoffs. So I mean, however many picks you make it, the top 16 or whatever in the NFL or maybe more, it's just I don't know. It's still the teams that finish low still have a higher chance of getting a high picks. I kind of just like the mixing it up idea. I mean, it makes a team like I don't know who's a good example. Like last year, I don't know, maybe like the Chargers or the Buccaneers. Like, what if one of those two teams who already kind of had nice pieces in place just lucked out and got the number 1 seed, and then the Chargers could challenge Oakland and Kansas City, or the Buccaneers could challenge Carolina and Atlanta. I don't know. I just like it. I think that it makes the league more interesting because you want it to be good. And bad teams are going to be bad whether or not you give them the first overall pick in the draft. So I kind of like it, mixing things up, and it adds a little more excitement, I guess, to the whole process. And I don't know. I think that from January or no February until or maybe March until like September is just such a long time. And it's so like there isn't that much excitement for however long that period is between the Super Bowl and the beginning of the season. So just adding another thing, I kind of like it.
There's one other thing. I'll admit I'm more in Anthony's camp where I really haven't followed NBA, and I think part of that is Cincinnati not having a team, at least since the Cincinnati Royals left many years ago. But one additional thing I think kind of interesting that you see in the NBA draft is they have these things called protected picks, which is so intriguing as an NFL fan, where, if you're a really dumb team and you give away your first round pick for next year and you have a bad record, you just gave up a top 5 pick. In the NBA, it is so fascinating how, you look at, they're talking about the Boston Celtics ended up with the top pick this year based on how the drafts worked or how the trades worked out. But there were some other teams in the top 5 based on trades who didn't lose their pick because it's a protected pick. And I guess when you trade, and I always wondered why they never tried that in football, why the Browns or Bengals, someone didn't say, hey, we'll trade you our first round pick next year unless it's in the top 10, then we'll push it off to next year or the fall. I just find that idea kind of interesting. And I kind of wonder if anyone in the NFL has ever tried that and just got laughed at, or if they just, the NFL wouldn't allow something like that. But I do find that aspect very interesting, that you could be perpetually, waiting to get that pick because it's protected and you're waiting for that team not to suck so much so you can get that pick from them. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And then it's obviously interesting in a couple weeks, baseball has their draft, which is totally different too. They have competitive balances. They have like round 1A in addition to round 1. You get extra picks if you don't spend a lot of money. You lose picks for signing free agents. This is it's a very weird animal.
Yeah, baseball, and it's a whole bunch of rounds for that draft, and I like the NFL draft the way it is, and I guess I know I'm a bit more of a traditionalist in a lot of respects when it comes to running a football team, how the NFL is, and I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit old school that way, but I definitely see merit in both your guys' arguments, favoring some of the aspects of the NBA draft. Just personally, I mean, I think for better or worse, I think the NFL prides itself on being the quote unquote league of parity. And in doing so, I mean, I think that the draft is set up in such a way that teams who are bad or perpetually bad can get those high picks and maybe change their franchise. And, it's when you look back at the Bengals, I mean, it was in 2003, the 2003 offseason, it was a coaching change and it was a number 1 overall pick that was Carson Palmer. And then high picks in subsequent rounds beyond that became Eric Steinbach, Kelly Washington, all these players that ended up being staples for this team. And it turned them around after a horrible decade plus of football, and it was the draft that really changed them as well as their head coach too. But so I mean, if you want to look at it from a Bengals perspective and how the NFL draft is set up, it has benefited them as well. And the Bengals, as you know, this year had a top 10 pick and had high picks throughout most of the rounds and other compensatory picks. So and most of the players they grabbed seem to be pretty good ones. So we hope that would lead to a rebound of sorts for the Bengals this year. And I like the topic, Scott. It was interesting. I wish I followed the NBA a little more closely. I'm more of a March Madness / NBA playoffs guy myself. But nonetheless, great topic, and I'm glad you brought that to the table. I can't wait to hear what my co-host Connor Howe has to say about the next topic that we have on tap here. We might as well create a soap opera called As the Pac-Man Turns. There seems to be a weekly development with this guy since his issue in January that got him arrested, and his court date has been pushed back, and now he's reached a plea deal. And it includes, I believe, jail time he has already served. So really the only repercussions aside from some legal issues that he still has to sort out, doesn't look like any significant jail time or anything like that. Really the only forthcoming issue that Adam Jones might have to face is a potential suspension. And we all know how Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, is a bit fickle on that. But I almost didn't want to talk about Adam Jones this week, guys. Number one, because I'm sick of it. Number two, because it's negative. And number three, just I'm just kind of fed up with the guy personally. But it is news. It is Bengals related news. I'm going to be honest with you. There's a new video that surfaced. I've seen every single video that has come out through the Adam Jones arrest. This whole saga, I've seen all the videos except this one because I am just sick of talking about this and sick of seeing it. But it's important stuff, and he's a starter. He's been a Pro Bowler, so I get it. Connor, you have been an ardent supporter of Pac-Man Jones. I don't know if I guess ardent is a good word, I guess, but you've been in support of Adam Jones and kind of telling fans, hey, let's not jump off the ledge here. And go after the guy with the torches and pitchforks. What did you see in this video? Can you recap it and maybe let us know, for those of us who have not seen it, what you saw in this recent video?
Yeah, so I mean, I think first I just kind of want to clear my name here. Like, to be fair, I would honestly, I wouldn't call myself a defender of Adam Jones. I think he's an idiot. I think that this was something, if you watch the full video that came out yesterday, I think your opinion of him will change a lot. Not as a person, but in this scenario, you kind of see it's the body cam, and the officer's name, let me get it right here, is Sergeant Jared Cotton. And I don't want to be like whole opinionated about the police and stuff like that. There's good eggs and bad eggs everywhere, just like with like on a football team. But if you watch the whole video, I think it's interesting because I don't think it justifies Adam Jones being an idiot. I don't think it justifies him running around a hotel, knocking on doors, being annoying and getting people to eventually, call the police on him. Telling a police officer he wants the dude to die, who, by the way, is the officer that's wearing the body cam, so it seems, in this footage that came out yesterday. I encourage everyone, check it out. I wrote a post on it yesterday on Cincy Jungle. But there's a lot to go over here, and I don't know. I wouldn't call myself an Adam Jones supporter. I just think that you just need to see like what's going on before you like just call for the guy's job or want to like bury him on Twitter and all this stuff. It's just like people just go so over the top, and it's just kind of annoying. It makes me want to like get off social media and just go dark for a while, because it's just like every time I go on Twitter or whatever, like Cincy Jungle, there's just people there who just bring so much negativity. But I think it's finally I think it's almost good news this video came out yesterday because I think it's going to put a lot of things behind us. But anyways, to recap for those who haven't seen it, and I encourage you again, watch the video because it's a very revealing video. It really gives you a lot more context to what's going on in the whole situation. But Adam Jones is an idiot, right? He's going around the hotel, banging on doors, being a nuisance, and basically he's getting arrested. He says he hasn't assaulted anyone. Sergeant Cotton says, he needs to search you. The video starts out, about a minute in, or no, 35 seconds in is the timestamp. He starts reading Adam Jones his Miranda rights, and I don't know if that was previously released, but it was one of the most condescending ways I've ever heard someone read their Miranda rights. He was like, I don't even want to do the impersonation, but he was like, "You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to." It's just, it was like it was such a chore to him, and he was almost making a mockery out of Jones at that point. And I don't necessarily think it's like, I don't. It was just strange. Like, I've never heard someone like make a joke out of that before. It was mostly like. Most of the time, it seems kind of serious, and they want that person to be attentive. And granted, like, Jones was being an idiot; he wasn't listening, so maybe the guy had no chance. But that was kind of weird. And then Jones, the whole time, is kind of being annoying. He's resisting, trying to pull away from people. Doesn't want them to put his He wants them to take off his handcuffs. Wants them to stop touching him. Doesn't want to sit in the car when they ask him to sit in the car. But there's a few. I think what's the most revealing isn't what happens with Jones or Cotton, but it's with other people. There's a woman actually, first I'll go to the security guard. So obviously the security guard alleged that Jones assaulted him. He said that Jones tried to poke him in the eyes. He said that Jones stole his phone. He said that Jones gave the phone that he had stolen from the security guard to a woman who was with him. Then the security guard also claimed that the woman who Jones had given the phone to later returned the phone back to the security guard later on that night. The woman is then on camera, on the body camera, and she says that Jones did not. She's one witness that says Jones did not assault the security guard. She also said that she never returned a phone to the security guard, and the guy said, "Yes, you did," but she definitely did not seem like she had a phone on her at some point, or maybe I don't know, maybe she's lying, but. I generally tend to trust people when they're speaking until they give me a reason not to trust them. Then let's see what else happened. Cotton walks away from the woman, and she said, "All I heard when you started calling the police was he spit," and then it kind of cuts off, which is actually kind of funny because Jones at one point says, "If I could," he's like, "If I could spit on you right now, I would." Like you really see like the crazy side of Adam Jones. He's like, the officer's like, "Do you have anything crazy on you?" He's like, "I'm Pac-Man expletive Jones. Like, what do you think I have on me?" He's like, "I'm a football player. Why do you think I'm carrying something?" Like, it's kind of, he was so frustrated, and obviously, the cops is trying to do his job, but Adam Jones is just making life so difficult for them. And then, there's also another officer who when Cotton approached him, he was the other officer was like, "I know Pac," and he was talking about the whole turn of events. He said that he didn't see an assault, so that's the second witness that said he didn't see an assault. He also said that Jones did not poke the security guard in the eyes, like the security guard was saying. The officer that was friends with Jones repeatedly said that Jones kept jigging at the guy, which is kind of a strange phrase, but it's understandable. Jones kept on, like, he basically was just a nuisance. The guy was like, stop, leave him alone. Jones wouldn't leave him alone. So there was that. And then at the end, the officer was kind of like, the way he said it too, he was telling Jones, "Leave him alone, man. Just leave him alone." Like, he was just, it was almost as if he was just telling Jones that for his own convenience, for his own safety. It's an off season that people want to forget. Jones is definitely, I think that no matter what anyone's opinion is on the full video that comes out, it's going to be hard for him to overcome the fact that he told a cop that he wants the guy to die the next day on video. I personally think that Cotton was just really annoying, and I can see Jones's frustration. I remember one time a cop shut down a lemonade stand that I had with my friend's little sister because and he told us to move like 20 feet in a different direction because it was like on a certain property we weren't allowed to be on. And like there was one time, like everyone has bad encounters with police officers, and it is what it is. Like some will irritate you, some are obviously great people, and I think it's unfair to label everyone as good or bad. There's obviously, they're all people, and everyone is a different case. But in this situation, it just kind of felt like that Jones kind of just didn't get. He kind of got bad luck there because he had an officer who really seemed intent on putting him away that night. So I guess that's kind of it. I mean, it's people are gonna call me a Jones defender, and it is what it is. It makes my life it makes my experience on social media a little annoying, but I can deal with it. With all that said, I think at this point Jones, and I think my biggest argument this whole offseason has been, look, Jones is a top 32 corner at the very least, which means he could be the number one on a lot of different teams, let alone a starter on almost every team. So the Bengals made a decision not to cut him. They clearly want to win. They clearly don't care about PR. My whole argument has been that's understandable, right? Like they drafted Mixon. They like held on. They've held on to guys against fans' wishes for so many years. They clearly just they do what they believe is right, even if fans don't agree with them. And they obviously see Jones as a top 32 corner, which most stats would put him there. I mean, PFF and NFL 1000 both have him there. I think Jones allowed the second fewest yards per Football Focus over the past few years, and even last year he was one of the least targeted corners in the league. So he had a couple of really bad games, but I think if you put those behind you, you see a guy who was a really good player for most of the season last year. And I think he's an idiot. I would be 100% okay with the Bengals cutting him right now. I think that if they want to win now, they should keep him, and so I understand their decision. But with all that said, hopefully that's behind us. One last thing, I think it's worth pointing out Dre Kirkpatrick was there. I don't think that it means anything, but I think it's definitely it's a strong argument that against those who say that the Bengals are a bad fit for people with character red flags or whatever, because Dre and Jones are clearly really good friends. They're always hanging out together, so it seems. And people have unfairly lumped Dre in with Jones, and they've even lumped Burfict in with Jones as people who have issues off the field, when it's really Jones and I guess now Mixon who have ever really had any sort of blip off the field. So it was worth mentioning Kirkpatrick was there. It seemed like the officer didn't want him to. It seemed like Cotton didn't want to catch him on the body cam, but there's a brief moment. I think it's about 6.5 minutes into the video that you can see Dre there, and I think that Rebecca was telling me that on the 911 call you could hear someone else yelling on the phone along with Jones, and she was telling me she hoped it wasn't Dre. Not for any really reason, but you just don't want to have to deal with all that drama. So it turns out it was Dre. But again, I think this is all finally going to be all in the past now. And in terms of suspension, I find it hard after watching this video to think that the league is going to suspend Jones unless it has to do with the words he had for that one police officer. Okay, it seems like Anthony's having issues with volume, so I guess I'll just go host mode for a second. I don't know, Scott, do you have any thoughts on the whole Adam Jones? Did you watch the video or anything?
I haven't seen the video yet, but one thing I'm assuming it's a TMZ video.
No, it was reported.
Oh.
I know that the Inquirer acquired it somehow. I don't know who initially released it, but the one I saw was on the Inquirer.
I just think it's amazing because when you're talking about this video, and I know so many of these videos come from TMZ, it just makes me wonder, how did they get all these videos? And with the government spending all this time investigating the Russians hacking the elections and Hillary Clinton's emails, maybe they should investigate how TMZ gets all these videos. But I guess in this case, it wasn't TMZ.
TMZ just sits at the airport and they call. I remember when Tyler Boyd got drafted. I remember there was a video that came out after he got drafted by the Bengals, and TMZ had just been sitting in the airport for the entire day. And once Tyler Boyd got off the plane, they came up to him and started just asking him a bunch of random questions. It's interesting for sure.
That must be so either I'm assuming it's freelance, so they probably just look for guys who have the time to sit there and then pay them if they catch something.
Yeah, I mean they're hiring. I was like, maybe so I need a job. Maybe I'll work for TMZ, but I'm not really interested in sitting in airports all day, so I'm gonna pass.
Well, I was
Can you
hoping
guys
when
hear
you
me?
said you were.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Go continue, Scott.
I was just want to say when we were calling Connor a Adam Jones supporter or defender, I was hoping that we could keep that going long enough to get him on one of our podcasts before Connor revealed that he was kind of neutral in the whole thing.
Right.
I think that it's just taking the stance of he shouldn't be suspended for his entire life. People just tend to lump me in with people that are supporting. I guess there's people that blindly support. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of people that are really on Jones' side. I'm just kind of a perpetual devil's advocate. But in this case, it's just kind of been I don't hate the team's decision to leave him on the roster. And especially now, there's so many corners competing for snaps. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Now you guys can
Yeah,
correct
and
me if
what
I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say my assumption is because it was mentioned earlier how a lot of the fans are ready to see him get axed. So I'm kind of wondering, since he is a older player, he's a pricier player. I mean, obviously not in tens of millions, but he's one of the Bengals' pricier players. He's declining from where he was a couple years ago, his Pro Bowl year. He's still solid, as Connor mentioned. But I have to wonder if he was younger and, a little better, let's say a top 20 corner in the league, someone up and coming, if the response would be very different. If it'd be more, we want to defend him, the NFL is just going to be out to get him. That's not fair. He's innocent. But, okay, we're tired of him. We're tired of his crap. Let's just move on.
I think a lot of
I
it
think
has
it's
to do
most
with
definitely.
age. I think it's like almost probably 99% age. I mean, because you look and there's exceptions. Like Terry Newman, former Bengal, is like 39 right now, and he was starting on the Vikings last year, at least for a portion of the season. Still, he had just signed a 1-year extension, I think, with them. But Jones, that's the thing. I also think that he had 2 or maybe 3 really bad games. Denver, he played really bad. New York Giants, which was on Monday Night Football, I believe, he gave up that touchdown catch to Odell Beckham, where Beckham just, put him in a blender. But to be fair to Jones, I would guess most NFL corners would have been put in a blender on that play. It's just all of his bad plays seem to be concentrated around a couple of games, and so the thing is, last year, both Jones and Kirkpatrick were really not super noticeable. Aside, I guess there's a few both of them were among, I think, the top 10 people in penalties, but they were both, by most metrics, really solid. And the Bengals, their big weak spot on defense is obvious for so long has been nose tackle. They give up so many runs up the middle, but it's also in pass defense. It was really the middle of the field last year, where in nickel the combination of Dansby and Burfict, pick whichever one you want to blame. They just weren't Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. If you have 2 elite guys who can cover a ton of ground in the middle of the field, it worked very well. But with the Bengals, they play a lot of cover 2, allow opponents to have that short pass in the intermediate areas of the field or to the seams, because those are the vulnerable areas of their defense, and people made them pay for it. But I think the corners really didn't seem to get burned a lot last year. And I think a lot of it is just Jones' age. And that's the thing, is there's obviously exceptions. And so I think if Jones was 24, 27, people really wouldn't have an issue that much. Or, also the 10 arrests, definitely hurts him as well.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. At 24, he doesn't have the rap sheet that Adam Pac-Man Jones currently has. Most likely, that would be a very troubled 24-year-old if they do, but Jones is a guy that has been through college, through the pros, and even in his reclamation years with the Bengals, he's been in trouble. And when he hasn't been arrested. There have been times where it's been very close to, or he's pushed the envelope. He's been drunkenly kicked out of casinos. He's been all of these things, and it's not like, it's hard to explain. It's not like some young single guy who's going out with some buddies and kind of continuing to get drunk and getting into trouble that way. It's a guy who's got a family at home. It's a guy who has had a long rap sheet, and you just kind of go, I'm almost really worried for the guy when he doesn't have football anymore in terms of his personal life. I'm really worried as to what he's going to do in his spare time and what kind of trouble he's going to get into when he doesn't have the millions of dollars coming in from playing football, when he doesn't have the structure and all of that comes with football, because he has proven, even with that structure and that money coming his way, he has proven to be an unreliable human being and an unreliable teammate for the Bengals, for the Cowboys, for the Titans. He's that's just who he is. And I've met the guy. He's personable with fans. He's personable with other people. But there is a side of Adam Jones that is completely unlikable, completely unpredictable, and completely out of control. And I think we all know that. And again, I haven't watched this video, and I'm sure it plays into Jones's corner a bit as to, why he got this plea deal and isn't getting substantial time. But in terms of suspension and in terms of fan attitudes about him, and they definitely differ, Connor. I mean, there's a lot of people like you who say, this has kind of been an overblown thing, and this video kind of helps him out, and I totally get that. But I believe it was Cliff in the YouTube chat. It says, you're I believe his words were, you're an ass to a cop, and you're gonna get attitude back. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And I think, unfortunately, because of who he is, the police officers and a lot of people in the Cincinnati area, be it in the service industry, what have you, they know who he is, and they know when he gets in trouble, that might have played into the attitude that you perceive to see in that video. It's like, oh, here's Jones again. Who knows if that officer has been in other arrests or other citations that Jones has received in the Cincinnati area, and he's like, oh, this guy again. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to digest here. As of now, he's going to be a Bengal. As you said, Connor, you are very correct that the Bengals are in win-now mode by hanging on to him, by going after a troubled player in Joe Mixon. The thing is that most other teams get a pass because the teams that do that, the Patriots, they win, and they win championships. Now, if the Bengals are going to do this, and if this is finally going to be behind everybody and we don't have to talk about it anymore, the Bengals need to win. And he needs to play well, and he needs to, maybe not have any more of these issues, but the Bengals need to win. Winning cures everything, and I think that, once they do that, once they have proven to do that, get through the postseason, maybe even win a Super Bowl, then this kind of stuff, they won't go, oh, the Bengals, oh, they drafted that Mixon kid, oh, they hung on to Jones. They're going to say they gambled and won, and and I'll be the first to say it as well. But for now, I'm just kind of sick of Jones and his antics to this point. I apologize that my microphone went out there a little earlier. That's why we do the live show, and we can edit afterwards. But appreciate you guys stepping in for me there for a second. Let's now that we've been on our high horses and talked a little social issues, I guess, let's have a little fun. And I'm going to credit Scott for this one as well. Scott did a post on Cincy Jungle, which, by the way, I mentioned earlier in the show, you can catch us live on Cincy Jungle every week, as well as our YouTube channel. All of our content, be it audio, video, and posts to go along with it, are on Cincy Jungle. You can catch us on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at BengalsOBI. Get all the social media stuff. Follow us, download us, appreciate it. Scott, you did a running back quiz of sorts for Cincy Jungle, and very, very interesting stuff, very fun. And we're going to have a little mini game show, and I'm going to let you be Alex Trebek or Pat Sajak or whoever you like the most, buddy. And you're going to quiz Connor and I. And I want the listeners who are tuning in live to play along and not let Connor cheat and look at the YouTube chat, buddy, because I know when we go head to head, I know. So Scott, I'm gonna let you play host for this segment. It's a running back quiz, and you decided to do this because the Bengals drafted Joe Mixon in the second round this year, and they have quite a track record, a lot of success with a lot of running backs that they've drafted. But you created this quiz, so take it away, sir.
Yeah, well, first you mentioned game show hosts, so I guess I'll go ahead and say I'm going to do my Bob Barker impression from Price is Right. So
I was going to go Chuck Woolery myself, but go ahead.
Well, I just want to remind everyone to have their pets spayed and neutered.
Should I take my headphones off?
Yes, Joe Mixon was drafted in the second round, and if that sounds familiar, some Bengals fans who follow the draft at all might think, hey, didn't they just do that recently? And maybe recently before then? Turns out they have. In the going back to 1988, so going back 30 years, of the 24 running backs they've drafted, a third of them have been second-round picks. Very disproportionate. If you figure, there's 7 rounds, and even back then there were more than 7 rounds, that you're taking a third of them all in the same round, there's something kind of screwy with that. So as Anthony mentioned, there is a post that'll be showing up on Cincy Jungle soon, which is this quiz. So I thought I'd go ahead and quiz our 2 hosts and see how well they do on it live on the air. And then we can go back to the MP3s or whatever and play it and see how horrible they did or how great they did. If you do like this quiz, I will mention it's hosted on a site called Sporkle. And if you look for a user, my name is username316. There are a ton of Bengals quizzes that I've created over the years. Some of you may have seen them on the Cincy Jungle site. If you've missed them or want to take them again, you can go on that site, look under, I think you can look for username316. That's something I picked out of the air years ago. So anyway, you can play a lot of other ones. So we'll do this one. I don't know which of you wants to start first, Anthony or Connor?
I'll let Connor
go first. Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Should we coin flip it? I've got a beer cap here. Let's coin flip.
No, I'll go first. It's fine. I'll go first. No worries.
Okay. All right. I'll give you the advantage. Let's go. Okay. So I take my headphones off and I will not look at the screen. How about that?
I'll type when you need to come back in. I'll type when you need to come back in.
Perfect. All right.
Okay. So while Anthony is in his sound booth, what we're going to do is I'm just going to read a list of 24 running backs, and then Connor is basically going to say yes or no if they were drafted in the second round. And then I will run through that same list with Anthony, and same thing, it'll just be a yes or no. So I'll say a name like Joe Mixon, and then Connor would say yes or no. I'll kind of go down the list until we do them all. We'll do the same thing with Anthony. And then obviously anyone listening live on the YouTube, feel free to play this, either type your answers in or just, track it, follow along at home. So with that, Connor, are you ready to go?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Joe Mixon.
Yes.
Jeremy Hill.
Yes.
Giovanni Bernard.
Yes.
Rex Burkhead.
No.
Dan Herron.
No.
Jay Finley.
No.
Bernard Scott.
No.
Fui Vakapuna.
No.
Chris Perry.
Yes.
Jeremy Johnson.
No.
Rudy Johnson.
Yes.
Curtis Keaton.
No.
Nick Lachey.
No.
Marcus Parker.
Oh my gosh, who are these people? I'm gonna say yes to I'm changing my answer to yes on the previous one, and I'm gonna go yes on this one too.
Corey Dillon.
Dang it! I'm gonna change the okay. So it's gonna be yes, no, yes. So the one I just said was no. Corey Dillon's yes.
Parker and then yes on Dillon.
Yeah.
Tijana Carter.
Yes.
Jeff Cothran.
Wait, no. Kajana Carter was no. Sorry.
Okay, Jeff Cothran.
No.
Estelle Miles.
Who are these people? No.
This is the great history of Bengals running backs.
These people were drafted before I was probably born.
Mike Dingle.
Yes, has to be. Team Dingle.
We are in the early 90s now, by the way. Right now we're in 1990. Harold Green.
Yes, sounds like a second round name.
Eric Ball. UCLA,
No.
that's right up your alley.
No.
Craig Taylor.
No.
Okay, and last but not least, I'm going to get me some cold cuts, Icky Woods.
Sure. Second round.
Okay, I don't have these tabulated yet. I will tell you it wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
So we can go
Okay.
ahead and put Anthony on, and then I'll let you guys chat for a bit while I add these up.
Okay. Well, now we're just waiting for AC to come back.
I will say you did well for being someone who's a little younger. It wasn't a bad attempt. And you started out very strong.
Yeah, I know. Like Pat, I feel like you can kind of tell where I started following the Bengals because the Andy Dalton era was kind of when I started. Oh, I started like Carson Palmer era.
Anthony, you back with us?
I'm back. Hi, what's the score to beat here?
I just want to wait. I just want to let you go, and I just want to let you guys chat for a bit, talking about how you think you did while I summed them up.
Okay.
So,
Connor, how do you feel you did?
I mean, I know I didn't get 100. I know I got 100% back to a certain point, but I mean, how far back that was anyone's guess. I really don't know.
Okay. The question
Yeah.
was the question which backs aren't second round picks? Was that the question?
It's yes if they are in the second round. So
yes, if they are in the second round.
A second round pick.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and throw Connor in his sound booth or whatever.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I don't really need to.
Yeah, if he knows
Okay.
the questions already.
I'll try not to give anything away. I don't really know how I could.
Okay, so Anthony, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to read you a list of names from Joe Mixon going back the last 24.
And I say,
20.
But the answer is yes, they were a second rounder.
Correct.
Or no, they were not. Is that okay?
Correct.
All right.
So this is a yes or no, or a Y or an N, or something like that.
Okay. All right.
Joe Mixon.
Yes.
Jeremy Hill.
Yes.
Giovanni Bernard.
Yes.
Rex Burkhead.
No.
Dan Herron.
No.
Jay Finley.
No.
Bernard Scott.
No.
Fui Vakapuna.
No.
Chris Perry.
No.
Jeremy Johnson.
No.
Rudy Johnson.
No.
Curtis Keaton.
No.
Nick Lachey.
No.
Marcus Parker.
No.
Corey Dillon.
Yes.
Kajana Carter.
No.
Jeff Cothran.
Ooh, that's a tough one. No.
Estelle Miles.
No.
Mike Dingle.
I'll say yes to that.
Harold Green.
Yes.
Eric Ball.
Yes.
Craig Taylor.
Ooh. No.
And last but not least, Icky, I'm going to get me some cold cut woods.
For sure, second rounder, yeah. And can I get extra credit?
Possibly.
You already beat me.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Well, okay. Well, you missed one in there. There's Kenny Irons.
Oh, you're right. I have him on my quiz. I skipped right over him. in my.
I think you skipped over him for me too.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let
Kenny
Connor
Irons
go
was-
first.
Well, I know it was Kenny Irons, so
Okay.
I know he's second rounder.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Yes.
Right
Someone
between.
someone said I got it right back to 2004. I mean, shout out me. I didn't even start following the team until a while after that.
Yeah,
Dude, you pride yourself on being Bob Barker and you miss a question. You're more like Mark Summers or something, dude.
Scott under more fire than Adam Jones.
Are you guys going to take the physical challenge then? Okay, that probably predates Connor.
That's funny. Double dare.
That's all I know him
physical
from.
challenge. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
well, that's what
of
I'm saying.
the 24, let's see, Connor got 19, Anthony got 23.
I will take that. Wow.
So,
I got 23.
Yeah. I would just read
Who's the
through
one I
these real
missed?
quick. Joe Mixon, yes, you guys got
Okay.
that. Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard, you guys all got those. Rex Burkhead, Daniel Boom Heron, Jay Finlay, Bernard Scott, Fui Vakapuna, Kenny Irons, who I skipped. The first one, Chris Perry, he was end of first round. He was so that was a miss for Connor. I think initially Connor had said a no and changed it to yes at the end when he was changing.
Gosh darn it.
He was late first round.
He was borderline. Borderline.
Yeah, I think he was like 26th overall.
Yeah.
Jeremy Johnson, the fullback, you guys both had that as a no. Rudy Johnson was a no. So Connor missed that. He was, I think, a fourth-round pick.
He was fourth round.
Curtis Keaton, you guys got that right. He was no. Fullback Nick Luche is also a no. So that was another miss for Connor. You guys both correctly had Curtis Keaton as a no. I'm sorry. Parker was a no. Corey Dillon, you guys both nailed that as a yes. Kajana Carter, no. He was first overall. The guy they traded up for. Jeff Cothran, the fullback from Ohio State, was a no. Ostell Miles was a no. Mike Dingle is the one you guys both missed. He was a no. He was an 8th-round pick back in 1991.
Mike Dingle just sounds like a second rounder to me. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
3 of the next
Second
4
round name if
second.
I've ever heard one.
There was a string of no's, so I was like, I'll throw a yes in there.
Well, you were
That's
one.
what I felt like too. That's what I felt like. It was like all of them were like no.
You were just a bit early because Harold Green was a yes. You guys got that. Eric Ball was a yes. Connor missed that. Mm-hmm. Taylor was a no, and then Icky Woods was a yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Not gonna lie.
I knew like about who 1/10 of those people were, so I'm glad I got a 79.1%. That's pretty good. It's like taking a test on like 3 subjects, and I've only studied for 2 of them. Got the 2 I studied for, right?
After about 2000, every name I mentioned, Connor was like, "Who the hell's that?"
We have a question in the chat room from Rat Salad. It says, "Was Kenny Watson drafted by the Bengals?" And no, he was not. He was drafted by the Redskins. The Bengals picked him up. He was an undrafted free agent by the Redskins in 2001. So there you go.
Fun fact.
P. Crawley 513. Good job, old man Ant. How about just good job, Anthony? You don't have to throw in the old man. Good God.
Making me feel young.
I guess. Yeah. Seriously. Let's get out of here with a couple of fan questions. I think there was one in here. I'm looking to see who it was from, but I saw it earlier. It was about the Domata Peko comments recently, guys. And
throwing gas in the Bengals.
Yeah. Connor, for those of you who don't know, Domata Peko signed with the Denver Broncos this offseason, and in recent mini camp practices, he was interviewed by the media, and he basically said, I think he was asked the question, something to the effect of, what's the difference here in Denver than it was in Cincinnati? And Domata Peko said something to the effect of, this is here in Denver, it's about winning championships. In Cincinnati, it was about winning a playoff game. Kind of eye-opening, especially because he was such a well-liked, well-respected team leader type of guy. I know he caught a lot of flack from fans the last couple of years because of his play, but a bit surprising from a guy that was a real team guy. I'm sure he's excited to be in Denver. I'm sure he's kind of playing to the fans and the media there a bit. But Connor, what do you make of Peko's comments? I mean,
Okay, so
go
my
ahead.
bad. Oh, I was gonna. Sorry, so you cut off. That's why I started. But Domata Peko, man, because that's the thing is like I'm sure it was just kind of they asked him a question, he wanted to give him a good answer, and so he kind of set them up with the whole fan friendly Broncos go team type of thing. They won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, so it makes sense, right? Like in Denver, we're talking about Super Bowls. I'm excited to join my new team. Definitely wasn't taking. I don't think he was actually taking pot shots at the Bengals, but like at Cincy Jungle, we're gonna talk about anything that has the word Bengals in it, even if sometimes we accidentally, mix in a story about a tiger, in Mongolia getting attacked by a rhinoceros. Like sometimes anytime we see the word Bengal, we're gonna pounce on that news. So, but Domata Peko, I mean, and that's the thing is he kind of set himself up there because you have to know at this point in your career that Bengal fans are just gonna try to put you in a body bag anytime you say anything. And I mean, yeah. So when he says, in Denver we're talking about championships, and Cincinnati was all about a playoff game. Well, Domata, like you think about it, and honestly, the guy was really, really nice. So it's hard to like not be nice to him, but. I mean, let's talk, Domata, because your nose tackle, right? Your job is to stop opposing running backs from tearing apart the Bengals, and never really spoke up for. Didn't really seem like he ever spoke up that much for Andy Dalton. Never that he was, criticizing Dalton, but Dalton for the first 5 playoff games, well, I guess 4 that he played, got a lot of flack for his performances, and a lot of it understandably so. But I think that him and even almost Marvin Lewis to an extent were kind of scapegoats because you look at every single playoff game from 2011 to 2015. All right, let's look at these numbers because I have them all pulled up, right? Okay, Bengals Texans 2011. Arian Foster 24 carries, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Where were you then, Domata? Okay, next game, 2012. Again, Bengals versus Texans. Arian Foster, 32 carries, 140 yards, 1 touchdown. Where were you there, Domata? All right, next game, Bengals Chargers, the game the Bengals really should have won out of all those playoff games. But again, all right, Chargers. Ryan Matthews is hurt most of the season, only takes 13 carries, gets 52 yards. His backup, Danny Woodhead, 15 carries, 54 yards, 1 touchdown. The third stringer, Ronnie Brown, who's like 8 carries, 77 yards, 1 touchdown. Where were you then, Domata? 3 running backs for 50-plus yards rushing in 1 game. All right, let's go to the next game. Indianapolis Colts, 2014. You've got, I don't even know. I think their starting running back, I don't know who it was, but they were hurt. You've got Dan Herron, former Bengal, cast out of Cincinnati. 12 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Backup, Zerlon Tipton. No idea who that guy is. 11 carries, 40 yards. So where were you then, Domata? Last game, Pittsburgh Steelers. A.J. McCarron's the starting quarterback. Bengals should have won this game if not for a lot of things going wrong. So maybe they shouldn't have won this game. But that being said, Le'Veon Bell's out of the game. D'Angelo Williams was, I believe, out of the game as well. You've got Jordan Todman, 11 carries, 65 yards. No idea who you are. Fitzgerald Toussaint, 17 carries, 58 yards. No idea who you are. Martavis Bryant, wide receiver, 1 carry, 44 yards. So how many backup running backs played the Bengals in the playoffs over the past few years? And despite that, opponents seem to be even better at running against the Bengals in the playoffs than they were in the regular season. So Domata, you were in every single playoff game, but you had a chance to make an impact. You can't really throw your former team under the bus like that if you're going to kind of just let every single running back run straight past you. And then, of course, you have the notorious play where he runs onto the field in a cloak against the Steelers, draws a 15-yard penalty, and then people are going to talk. Anthony, I know you and me were both at that Cardinals game in 2015 where he, I don't even know what he did, but that weird penalty, I don't even remember what that was. And I still don't even think that I knew what it was at the moment. But that was a penalty that kind of cost them the game there, too, as well. So, Domata, where were you, dude? Do you have...
I think in Arizona it was the deal where he was emulating the snap.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah, saying hut while he was on the line or something. But I don't know. Like you said, there are a couple of things there that, he's a leader and that you just can't do that stuff. I'm not going to say too much, and then I'll kick it over to you, Scott, because I have a post coming up on Cincy Jungle about this, just kind of talking about what he said. And, he's kind of right in one respect, but he's also out of line in another. I mean, really, for me, I look at it and I say, I mean, he's really not inaccurate in saying that. I mean, this, and however you want to look at it, whether it's, hey, we just need to win that one playoff game and then we'll win a bunch more. Maybe that was the attitude. Or if it's, hey, we're pretty good. We haven't won a game for a while. Let's try and win this one playoff game. You have to figure some of win those one playoff games. Andy Dalton was hurt in one of them. They were completely banged up against the Colts in 2014. So it might just be like, hey, let's focus on this one game. Okay. I wouldn't have had a problem with Peko coming out and making this kind of comment if he kind of just said what he said at the end of it, which is, well, here, meaning in Denver, we focus on championships, and that's what I'm here to do. If he just kind of said something like that, fine. But I don't think he needed to do the whole prefacing of the in Cincinnati. And this is a guy who was paid tens of millions of dollars to play for the Bengals and was a great guy in the locker room, great guy in the community. And this one kind of shocked me. I'm not going to lie to you. I was shocked to hear this from this guy because even though he wasn't the most consistent on-field performer, he was a great guy by all accounts. And this kind of surprises me, especially to a team that was more than fair to him in terms of money and contracts and tenure and everything. I was just a little surprised by the comment. Your thoughts on it, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what both you guys are saying. It just seems very unnecessary. And I mean, you kind of get where he's coming from. A team that has not been in the Super Bowl in many years or won a playoff game in many years. Kind of reminds me of, someone like the Wright State Raiders or some school like that where you're just trying to get in the NCAA tournament. And your goal at the beginning of the season is we just want to get in and see what happens. You go somewhere like UK, they're not thinking, man, I just hope we can get into that NCAA tournament. They're basically thinking, we're in. We're going to be a top few seed, barring something crazy. We hope to do some damage in there, possibly win the thing. It doesn't mean that Wright State doesn't, want to win 8 games and that they're just content getting there. But that's kind of how, their perception is going to be because that's something they don't do very often. The Bengals, haven't won that playoff game. So that's obviously, like you said, that's the first thing you want to do. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And I think that may have happened in those first few, like the Chargers game or the Houston games where they were clearly the better team and for whatever reason just looked horrible on the field and got outplayed. So I don't know if they were just getting ahead of themselves and the coach is like, hey, we just need to focus on this game right here, right now. And it seemed like a strange thing for him. I don't know if he was struggling with some eutrapelia, trying to get that working or what it was, but anyway, that is what it is.
I don't see Denver as a team that's going to be competing for a championship this year, dude. Like, honestly, I think Cincinnati, and maybe, call me a homer or whatever, but, like, the AFC West has 3 teams, I think, that, like, the Broncos finished 3rd last year in the AFC West. The Chargers have been the most snake-bitten team in the league for the past however, I mean, they they probably had like 5 or 6 wins. Granted, they lost to the Browns, so they had their struggles last year, but they're missing their 2 best players for almost the entire season in Keenan Allen and Jason Verrett. Last year, Casey Hayward was the best cornerback in the entire league, and he's not even the best player on the Chargers, or the best cornerback. You look at Denver, right now, on paper, they have a pretty, have a few stars, Von Miller, the wide receivers, but, they don't have a great offensive line. They don't have much depth at receiver behind their top 2 guys. I don't even know if I can name a tight end on the roster. Maybe Virgil Green's still there. Their D-line, I guess, is... Who's on their D-line? Derek Wolfe is good, but Domata Peko is not. And I don't know if it was Jared Crick or whatever, who was the 3rd guy. I don't know about that. Von Miller's good, but they watched, Danny Trevathan headed for the Bears, and Sylvester Williams was gone from nose tackle. Malik Jackson's gone from defensive tackle. They don't have this, and they just don't have this elite. They don't have the defense that they did the defense that carried Peyton Manning to a Super Bowl in 15 or 2014, and now their
2015
offense
season,
is.
yeah.
I mean, I guess they have a couple of guys. Jamal Charles, gosh, I love Jamal Charles. I hope he doesn't do well though, because even though he's like probably my favorite running back in the league that's not on the Bengals, he gets hurt all the time. So I don't know. We'll see about that. They have like I guess they have some guys on paper, but Denver is going to field either Paxton Lynch or Trevor Siemian at quarterback this year. What about that is exciting? The Bengals have a better receiving group. They have better running backs, even with the Broncos having Jamal Charles. At least at this point, until Jamal Charles proves he can get over his injury. The Bengals, you could argue, have the better defense too. So, interesting move by Domata to say that. I mean, I get where he's coming from, and honestly, it's kind of almost on us, the fans that continually talk about the playoffs. I get where he's coming from with people won't stop talking about the playoffs in Cincinnati. They have to win a playoff game. It's kind of on them. They're currently, in terms of however many years it's been since a playoff win, but also how many playoff games they've lost in a row. They're both records. The number of losses in a row is high for most consecutive losses in playoff history, and obviously they have the longest active drought of any football team without a playoff win. So I get where that's coming from. But I mean, I wouldn't say, at the very least, I would say that it's not like Denver is that much better of it. Like they're probably even. I would say if you're talking about it from like a maybe worst case scenario.
Yeah, and I think part of where it comes from, the Denver Broncos have tied for the NFL lead and being in Super Bowl appearances with 8. They have 3 rings to their name, and as recent as a couple of years ago with Peyton Manning after the 2015 season, the Bengals, making this even more interesting, the Bengals play the Broncos on Sunday, November 19th in Denver, after the Bengals just brought in Joe Mixon and have Giovanni Bernard, have Jeremy Hill, and they're going to be running at him. So it's going to
Bengals going to rush for 200 yards, and it's going to be like a 3-point game. The Bengals going to rush for like 200 plus yards.
Early bold prediction. I love it. Scott, any additional thoughts on the Peko comments? I don't know if Scott's still there. Is he there?
Oh.
You there, Scott?
Yes, you guys hear me?
Yes. Oh, boy, these audio issues tonight. I love it. I was just wondering if you had any other additional thoughts with the Peko comments.
Man, you should have heard. I had something beautiful and eloquent. This perfect comment disappeared. So, top of that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, then. I like it. You know what? We have a couple of other questions we want to get to. Unfortunately, I think we're running a little long on time. Connor, any final thoughts before we get out of here from you?
I haven't even been here since the draft, so I'll say I like what the Bengals did in the draft. It was good. They added a lot of different pieces. Their offense should be a lot better in theory. Their defense, I think, could be the best in the league if things bounce their way this year. They added a kicker. That should be interesting. I like J.K. I think the whole J.K. Labor thing, Gonzalez argument was something. I don't know if you guys talked about that on a previous podcast, but that was kind of interesting. I think the whole Zane Gonzalez hype was interesting because you look at the two side by side, they look like pretty similar players. The Bengals clearly like Elliott, who kicked in the more severe weather. So I liked him. I thought it was a really good haul. I think you look at all the players in video or whatever, like Joe Mixon seems like a cool, like a decent guy, at least on video. He seems like a good person, and so I'm past the one incident, and you hope the best for everyone that's on the team. You hope the best for I hope the best, sincerely hope for the best for every player in the league. I hope that these guys can get their lives together and deal with the NFL life that they don't have it. So I mean, I don't know. I think it was a good draft. I think the Adam Jones the video is worth a watch if you have time. And yeah, I think that game was kind of rigged because I was born in 1995. So I guess congrats, Anthony. I will give you props. That was it was a good performance. Good performance.
You know, with a what was it, 23 of 24 came many tears.
That was good.
Many,
that was good.
Many
years of training.
Oh my gosh, that's why you see the bags under my eyes and the crow's feet. It's all because of the Bengals, my friend, and it's all because of those years with. Gosh, what was that one guy?
Oh man,
Mike Guthrie, or I don't know, Jeff Cothrans, and oh my gosh, all of those in the world. And I'm glad you mentioned the draft, Connor. I'm glad we got a few thoughts from you. I'm sorry we couldn't have a couple of episodes with you since the Bengals draft class has come out. For those of you listening, we had Joe Goodberry on last week talking about the class. He gave his analysis of each of the picks, and I know, Connor, you agree quite often with Joe Goodberry, but you also are a little bit.
Oh, I was laughing at the comment on the YouTube that said, "Hope the best for Antonio Cromartie. He just had his 14th kid."
Oh, good Lord.
It's true.
Oh my gosh. It's gonna be a whole team of Cromarties by the time he's done. That's gonna be fielded in the NFL. But we did have Joe Goodberry on once again. He was with us before the draft. He was with us last week. So if you didn't download that episode, please do. He was my guest co-host last week, and he brought it. And I'm very appreciative of him. Scott, any final thoughts tonight? Based on either what we talked about. I know we didn't talk about the Star Wars movie, buddy. I know you're pained about it, but we've still got a handful of months. It comes out around Christmas, okay?
Slow down, Scott.
I'm hearing myself in this record. Oh my goodness gracious! All right,
the most succinct analysis of our podcast is
yeah. It's kind of like the old school thing where you play a record backwards and you hear certain lyrics or you hear certain sounds. That's kind of what we're dealing with. Scott, do we have you back?
I think. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. I have no idea what.
I just want to know some final thoughts, buddy.
Yeah, basically building on what Connor was saying with the draft, I think one incredible thing is the whole team could be so much better if you look at what they are gaining, because you're Andrew Billings and William Jackson, who didn't play at all last year, and you're adding a couple good pass rushers in Willis and Lawson. And then, hey, you just added the top running back in the draft. You added this, obviously the fastest 40 time in modern history. Interestingly, just one interesting thing I wanted to mention, I think Ross is pretty cool because he has Billy Hamilton speed with the whole Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals thing. There was, I know, Ross
I'm just gonna let it keep going.
It's like he's singing.
I know. He's on auto tune. Scott, I can't bear with you anymore, buddy. I love you. You're a great guy. There is just
it's like a breakup.
Yeah, I know. There's just a lot going on, buddy. There's a lot going on, and you are choppy as heck, buddy. I don't know. I don't know what you're saying. You've been put on mute. Anyways, folks, we have just gone way off the rails, and it has been awesome. I can't believe you guys watch the show with so many audio issues. It just shows your love for this show. I appreciate it so much. Anyways, for Connor Howe, for Scott Schulze, this has been Anthony Cosenza. You can download all of our material on Cincy Jungle, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on YouTube. Please do so. We greatly appreciate the feedback and all of the live listeners through YouTube and through Cincy Jungle that we receive. We apologize for some of the technical issues tonight. We don't really know what's been happening, but we may have to make some switches in terms of equipment.
Oh, gosh.
All that good stuff.
Oh, I thought you were going to say personnel. I was like, whoa.
No, absolutely not personnel. Absolutely not personnel. I'm talking about equipment and I don't know what's been going on tonight. Maybe it's just slow internet speeds across the board or something like that. But we apologize for that. But we were glad you were able to join us regardless. And please again download probably the edited versions of this show coming up on all of those platforms. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza for Connor Howe and Scott Schulze. This has been the Orange and Black Insider. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next episode, and please tune in live. We love you.
Love you all.